now from Bellevue Hospital. Richard?
Jim, there are 1,600 EMS workers in New York City, and the seriousness of this situation depends upon who you speak with. Management is saying that less than 5% of the EMS workers stayed home today, while the union spokesman told me just moments ago that figure should be closer to 70% that didn't show up for work. Now, if you believe management that this has not had the devastating effect that some had predicted. Ambulance crew members have been calling in sick through 3 shifts today, but the EMS says the sick out has had little effect. Of the 116 ambulances in the fleet, 109 are in operation.
To the public, it doesn't mean a thing. We have more units in operation at the present time than we normally do on a Monday, and so there is no deterioration in service whatsoever.
The EMS has been able to cover for the missing workers by ordering those on the job to work overtime. An off-duty paramedic grappled with his conscience before deciding to report for work.
I have a problem with calling in sick and having somebody on the street that needs us. You know, this is not just a regular business that we can all just not come into work and everything, you know, they close the door and it's fine.
The job action has not been sanctioned by the EMS Technicians Union, but union leaders aren't critical of it either.
And we sympathize with the people in the city, but people have to sympathize with us too, that we've been taking you know, a lot of garbage over the last few years.
The union has been without a contract for 2 years. They want EMS technicians to get the same pay as firemen and policemen. Ambulance workers get about $19,000 a year. The paramedics, $22,000. They want parity, as I said before, with the firemen, the policemen. That would bring them up to a starting salary of $24,000. We're here at Bellevue. The garage is behind me. Ambulances have been going in and out all day. It seems quite normal around here. Meantime, the sick out will end tonight at midnight. The union has scheduled a meeting with its members tomorrow to discuss this problem, and another meeting between management and union has been set for next Tuesday to discuss the issues for which these people decided to stay home. Jim, Roland?
Would it be possible for them to stage a full-scale strike should negotiations break down?
There are negotiations scheduled right now, Jim. What they're trying to do is find a basis for negotiations. It's been 2 years, and there really seems that they are very, very far apart. To answer your question, I spoke with one union member who said that it would be possible for them to shut the system down, if you believe it.
Ambulance workers called in sick today, demanding higher pay. The demonstration was big, but as Eric Shawn reports, not big enough to cripple ambulance service.
Those who rushed to the sick were calling in sick. Roughly 1/3 of the city's EMS ambulance workers were not on the job today, as drivers, technicians, and paramedics staged a citywide sick out to protest working conditions and salaries. But despite a doubling of absent workers, EMS officials maintained there was virtually no impact on emergency response time or patient care.
At the present time, we're running more ambulances than we currently run at this time. And in fact, response time has remained under 10 minutes, which is in normal limits.
Sick calls were reported the highest at Queens General Hospital, Jacoby in the Bronx, and Woodhull in Brooklyn. Though a threatened sick out was called and canceled by the union, its president said this action was not sanctioned.
A lot of people in my membership are concerned about dignity and self-respect and recognition, and that perhaps they don't feel that they're getting that, and that this may have an impact on what's happening today.
You're going to check out East 50 and Lexington. East 50 and Lexington Avenue for an unknown position.
The major points of tension center on the service's high turnover rate. 52% of EMS workers leave every year and a half, and workers seeking pay parity with other emergency uniform services. Right now, ambulance technicians are paid roughly $19,000 a year to start. Paramedics nearly $22,000. This while police officers receive roughly $24,000. This ambulance worker did not want to be identified.
I hope that people just in the city of New York just come to realize that, you know, hey, we're out here too, and we deserve what we deserve, to be equated with police and fire and not to be looked down on.
With the high turnover, without parity, do you feel that you have a serious morale problem here?
Well, I think that we're a paramilitary service, and I don't know if you've been in the military, but I was, and I can tell you that it's kind of an avocation for anybody in the military to complain about things. They complain, but they get the job done.
This sick out is only likely to last today, but officials say if it continues, they are prepared. However, Director Kerr says those sick workers who return tomorrow without a doctor's note will be fined 1 day without pay. For the Independent News, I'm Eric Shawn at the EMS headquarters in Queens.
We have just prior to a meeting between the city and EMS workers. The workers have been demanding pay and benefit parity for some time with the police and fire department. Their contract does not expire till June, but the union says morale is low.
There is
EMS,
a strike.
an agency in crisis.
It's going to be to make the city aware of the problem that if they don't change it now is going to impact on patient care in the future. It's impacting already. So we're hoping to have an effect, and we hope the city takes care of it right away.
One report says EMS's response is now 10 minutes on average, a minute more than it was only a few years ago. On top of that, EMS is criticized for buying ambulances that aren't right and then not taking care of them anyway.
Well, Susie, they're out now with business and they're taking care of business now.
Because emergency medical technicians are paid far less than the cops and firefighters they often work with. The strike threat could come to a head sometime tomorrow morning. The Emergency Workers Union says it has scheduled a meeting with Mayor Koch, but the City Hall people say that Koch has no such appointment. Betty?
Here in New York, there is the threat of a strike by the city's emergency medical service workers. The paramedics say their working conditions are impossible, and they plan to meet with Mayor Koch tomorrow to talk to him about what they want.
They are heroes who have as their profession the business of saving lives, but they also have bills, and this dispute comes down to money.
I, as a 6-year paramedic, am making around $10,000 less than a policeman or a fireman.
When this building went up in flames last week, 4 firefighters and a civilian had to be treated for injuries by paramedics. The possibility of a strike by paramedics leads to the crucial question, who treats the injured if the paramedics are walking a picket line? EMT management is hoping it doesn't come down to that and is counting on the paramedics' compassion.
They're compassionate people, and I think that they recognize what is, that people will die if they were to strike.
People are fed up. They're only human, and when you push people to a certain point and you exhaust them, there's really no telling.
EMS workers are scheduled to meet with Mayor Koch tomorrow. Depending on how that goes, they'll decide if and when they'll strike. They are mobilized to strike on short notice, they say. What they want is more money. They want to be put under Mayor Koch's jurisdiction and taken away from the Health and Hospital Corporation. And they want more paramedics so they can stop forced overtime.
We hope Mayor Koch will do the right thing before we do something which could have dire consequences.
The paramedics' contract expires in June, but they could have a wildcat strike as early as this weekend, depending on how their talk with the mayor goes. A strike would be their first. Jim Dolan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
EMS crews answer about 2,000 emergency calls throughout New York City every day. Still,
Hunger in the Bronx than any place else. The report, its implications. From Bob Blanchard. Bob?
Bill, if you suffer a heart attack and call EMS for an ambulance, there's a good chance you'll be put on hold, and an even better chance you'll arrive at the hospital dead. Those are the startling revelations made in the study released today by Andy Stein.
The report paints a bleak picture of an ambulance service plagued by poor morale and run by a medical management team at odds with its own staff. As a result, the report concludes the EMS system has serious problems. For example, the study found that if you call for an ambulance on Staten Island, you have to wait 7 minutes for a response. But in the other boroughs, the response time drops dangerously. In Queens, it's 12 minutes, Manhattan 14, Brooklyn 15, and in the Bronx, worst of all, 25 minutes. In fact, in the Bronx, the report found if you call for an ambulance, there's a 49% chance, even in a life-death situation, you'll be put on hold. That doesn't surprise one family, which claims to have waited 2 hours for an ambulance. What time did you call for the ambulance, roughly?
9 o'clock.
And it got there when?
About 11.
2 hours later.
That's right.
One of the most startling aspects of the report is the fact that in most other American cities, if you have a heart attack, there's a 1 in 3 chance you'll arrive at the hospital dead. But in New York City, because the system is so bad, your chances are 2 out of 3 you'll arrive at the hospital dead. Today's report is more bad news for EMS. Early last year, we reported on how EMS crews refused to climb 10 flights of stairs to save the life of a 10-year-old girl. Although later cleared of wrongdoing by the city, EMS still faces a civil suit over the incident.
Late this afternoon, EMS announced it's in the process of implementing changes that will correct many of the problems, and they say since 1974 they have cut EMS response time in half. On a related matter, EMS technicians have asked for a meeting with the mayor to discuss the morale and other problems with EMS. John.
Frank LaSala is a...
But there are not enough ambulances to respond to every call that's in the system.
EMS tonight is demanding an additional 117 new ambulances, but that may not solve the agency's problems. Union employees, such as paramedics and technicians, are planning a work slowdown to protest what they call very long hours and overwork.
He blames that on mismanagement. He says emergency medical service officials have used strong-arm tactics and threats to keep that information from getting out. At City Hall today, some ambulance drivers aired their gripes. They claim morale is plummeting because of low pay, and they're threatening a job action.
Maybe one tour wouldn't show up. Maybe we'll do overtime on our terms instead of their terms. And maybe one tour won't show up and everybody will stay and work that next tour, and the next day another tour won't show up. And patient coverage will not be affected, but their overtime budget will skyrocket.
EMS says the average response time is 10 minutes. The union claims the numbers are being manipulated. The actual time, the union says, is much longer.
Lower Manhattan, and that's where John Johnson is standing by live right now with that story. John?
Cuddy, yes, I'm live here outside District Council 37 headquarters in Lower Manhattan, where just a short while ago, an angry meeting by emergency service personnel broke up. The EMS doctors and technicians, medics and technicians, took the first step that could ultimately lead to a strike against the city, a strike that could severely hurt health care. About 400 to 500 of the city's 1,600 EMS employees, the people who save lives daily, were behind closed doors tonight trying to decide what they should do about their demands for parity with other city uniformed services, like fire and police. The noisy meeting was marked by dissension within the EMS ranks. Some of the medics and emergency medical technicians wanting to chance a strike now. Others concerned that the city could invoke the Taylor law, forbidding strikes by city personnel.
Are you willing to strike?
Yes, if I'd have to.
Unfortunately, yes, because people have to realize that we have a job to do and we have to feed our families.
A compromise proposal was adopted during the meeting that calls on all EMS employees to show up for work without their uniforms on Friday morning. A stern and serious warning, according to the EMS employees, to the city that they mean business.
Feeling of the membership was that an actual strike, if it were to occur, would be after the contract ends June 30th or during the July 4th weekend, if by that time, with all these series of actions, we have not got a response that the members can live with.
And that's it. The EMS employees want the city to sit up and listen. They're serious. They are trying to say by this action that they could possibly strike. They don't want to. We'll have to see. This is John Johnson, Channel 7 Eyewitness News, live in Lower Manhattan. Cuddy and Ernie.
Thank you, John. There is a break to...
take the action. They say they want more money and better pension benefits. Frank Grimes is standing by live now at EMS headquarters.
Bill, EMS technicians and paramedics want the same pay and benefits as city police and fire department personnel. To get that message across to the city, EMS workers reporting to work tonight at 11 o'clock will leave their uniforms home, get into their ambulances, and respond to calls wearing civilian clothes. They're hoping to get the mayor's attention.
We are hoping that Mayor Koch will direct the proper people, that being the negotiator for the city, to make us an offer on our parity demands. We've been talking about this for a number of months, and we hope that they will do something before the step we're taking now becomes something more serious, which might impact on patient care. We're hoping that doesn't come to that.
As far as salaries go, EMS workers are about $8,000 to $10,000 behind cops and firemen. They say that's just not fair.
We respond to the same jobs that they do. We do the same work. We do life-saving work. We save lives. I think we're entitled to that benefit. We risk our lives and limbs to help other people.
Reach as many people as you can, okay?
Tonight, Emergency Medical Service Union representatives were explaining to their members how the job action would work. Civilian clothes will be worn, with their EMS ID cards prominently displayed. They stressed to technicians that this is not a job slowdown. They don't want to endanger patients. A Health and Hospitals Corporation spokesperson said that they wouldn't say what action, if any, they'll take until the job action begins.
Management has two options. They can either let us come in, make our statement, and go out and take care of the public, or if they act irrationally, they can send us home. And I think that would be unfortunate.
The plan is for EMS workers to report to work in civilian clothes for 10 days. They wouldn't say what they do if the city doesn't respond positively to this job action, but at least for now, they say, ambulance service will not be affected. Reporting live from EMS headquarters in Long Island City, I'm Frank Grimes. It's back to you, John.
All right, Frank, tell me a little about what the EMS is and does. So tonight, we begin a series of reports. What happens when you dial 911?
Okay. Hello? Yes, Sheriff. First of all, is the patient breathing or conscious?
Somebody hit him? With what? With a gun? Okay, I'm putting the call in as injury time. Ambulance will be there as soon as possible.
This is where it begins. These are the people you talk to when you call 911 because somebody is sick or hurt. These are the complaint-receiving operators, the link between you and the emergency medical service. And very often, they're the difference between life and death. Our first call takes us to Brooklyn. It's 10:30 on Friday night.
What we're going to do, we're going to take you over to the hospital, okay?
Take this off.
Okay, come on.
Well, take this one off my stomach right here.
That's for your own protection.
This was not a matter of life and death, not quite. This was a hostage situation. A woman was holding a 13-year-old girl hostage with a knife to her body. This woman will be taken away to Woodhull Hospital for psychiatric evaluation. It's 11:15 Friday night. Lafayette and Nostrand Avenues in the Bed-Stuy section of Brooklyn. We don't know if there's anybody in that building or not, but EMS is here. There is no one in the building, no firemen are hurt, but heavy smoke drifts into an apartment across the street. It hits a woman with asthma. She can barely breathe.
You feel better with the oxygen on, man? Okay, just take nice, easy breaths, okay? Don't breathe too fast, you don't want to hyperventilate, all right? So we're going to start an IV, okay, intravenous, in case we have to give you some medications, okay, if your lungs start tightening up on you.
The woman is taken into the EMS ambulance and given emergency care. She has to go to the hospital.
Okay, like I said, I think we got it right in time, okay? You only have a little wheeze, and now you don't have anything else. And we don't have to give you any medication at this time, okay? You're gonna listen.
It's 12:05 on Saturday morning, and we're rolling now. In about 5 minutes, we'll be at Brooklyn Hospital. This lady is in what they call respiratory distress because of her asthma. It's painful, it's dangerous, but with any luck, she'll be okay.
Very important you relax, okay?
12:20 Saturday morning, Carlton and Atlantic in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn. Gunshot wound to the head. Nobody knows yet how he was hurt or how badly. He goes to the hospital. For us, the day is done. For EMS, it goes on. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Fighting and sometimes losing the fight to mend the bodies and save the lives of the thousands of us who every year dial 911. 225,000 calls a year, everything from a baby born crying with newfound life to a person whose life is past, crying as it ebbs away. Tomorrow we talk to some of the men from EMS who do so much for so many, for so little.
Emotional roller coaster is probably the best description, that you can give this job. And you're kind of going down more than up most of the time.
We'll have the story of that emotional roller coaster tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock.
And there's much more.
The site in Sheepshead Bay, where he was trapped after a sewer pipe encased in concrete broke loose and fell on Delamay. Family members of the construction worker were at the scene when EMS medics pronounced him dead in what city investigators have labeled an unfortunate accident.
As John pointed out, the emergency medical service was there during the cave-in today in Brooklyn, and tonight, as we continue our special report, we spend some time with the men and women of EMS, the people you reach when you dial 911. It's Sunday morning, a little after midnight on March 1st. A cop has been hurt in Harlem. EMS is rushing him from St. Luke's Hospital to Bellevue, where he will have microsurgery. This is what you think of when EMS comes to mind. Flashing lights, sirens, the urgency of an effort to save a life or repair a body. But this is only the visible part of EMS. On a couple of nights traveling with them, I saw the warmth and dedication of these people, whom we call when we need them so badly, and whom too often we forget when their job is done. This is Tom Georgi of EMS. The woman is a victim of hit and run.
Okay, 104/60. Okay. Just let me get your pulse rate. You athletic?
I'm a dancer.
Okay, so you got good aerobic conditioning.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you got a nice low pulse rate and good low blood pressure. So you stay in good shape. Okay. Pulse is 72 and regular respirations are 16.
Yeah, follow this.
Okay. Okay. All right, I'm ready to go.
The emergency medical service is supported with modern vehicles and modern equipment and computers and communications. But it's people that make EMS work. People with human frailties and human worries and human fears and human hopes. These are some of the men and women I met the other night, the people of EMS.
From this community, you know what I mean? And I've seen a lot of these kids grow up and they see me in the street, and many times I go to calls and I know these people, you know, and it's not like they're strangers to me. They're people who I know and have dealt with before, and they feel very relaxed when they see somebody they know and they've seen before, and, you know, I feel that's my personal satisfaction.
There's been so many, you know. Yeah. There's been a lot, everything from delivering babies to people getting shot to getting on the scene where the shooting is still going on. Yeah. And it's basically you just duck and you just wait till it's all over and then you can go about your business.
I drove into a couple of shootings, and I'm a Vietnam vet. I was in the 25th Infantry Division in 1966, and there have been some times on this job that I have been as scared here as I was when I was in Vietnam. Emotional roller coaster is probably the best description, you know, that you can give this job. The toughest part of this job is going into the home and, you know, working 45 minutes to an hour, trying to resuscitate somebody, you know, emptying the drug box into them, just giving them everything, you know, that the hospital could have given them, you know, on the kitchen floor, you know, like in the bathroom, you know, like on the living room floor, etc. The mother is there, the father, the daughters, the whole family is watching you. And there just comes a time when the doctor tells you, you know, look, you're just not going to get this one back. The thing that probably bothers me more than anything about this job is there are just not enough of us out here.
Yes, at the most, EMS has only 1,500 people to respond to something like 720,000 calls every year. The people at EMS don't make much money. Many of them have second or third jobs. They try very hard, but sometimes they can't get to where they're needed as fast as we would like them to or as fast as they would like to. So to the people of EMS, my thanks for letting me spend some time with them and for simply being there when the city dials 911. John?
Okay, thanks.
Just to respond to ambulance calls. Well, tonight, an all-too-graphic story of just how bad the problem is. Ben Farnsworth has more.
The woman in Harlem had miscarried around 2:30 in the afternoon. Her friends called 911, but more than an hour and a half later, the ambulance hadn't arrived. We got there at 5:20 p.m. The woman was bleeding, but still no emergency medical service.
How is she?
Very upset.
Is she?
22-year-old Lorraine King was too upset to talk and had lost a lot of blood. Her friends told me that the woman had just been evicted from her apartment in June, was upset, and had come to talk about her problem. That's when she miscarried.
As she stood up, blood began to flow down her clothing, and she panicked. So I told her to go into the bathroom and I'd find her something to put on. And she screams. We run in there and the fetus had dropped out.
The fetus was placed in a bathroom sink while her friends tried to stop the bleeding.
The more we washed up, the more the blood was coming.
The women waited at least 2 hours and 45 minutes, but finally, a few minutes after we had arrived, the ambulance came. One medic took the fetus from the sink. The other stabilized the patient. The EMS workers wouldn't say why it took so long to get there, but an EMS spokesperson told us later, we will begin an immediate investigation. Preliminary information only shows that all available ambulances were busy. Higher priority calls may have come in.
The girl could have laid here and bled to death. How would I explain that to her family when she lay here and bleed to death? And it's very disturbing, and it's disturbed me. I'm mentally disturbed right now to see something happen to that to a woman, because you're a man, you can't feel like the way women feel, and we feel, and it's deep to know a woman is going through pain and bleeding like that because she's losing unnecessary blood.
Later, Lorraine King's sister said that medical personnel at Harlem Hospital wanted to know why it took so long for her to seek medical treatment. Medical workers at the hospital told us that Lorraine King was in shock when they brought her in because she lost so much blood. She is now in stable condition and will be hospitalized for at least 3 or 4 days.
Ben, out of curiosity, wasn't there an alternate form to get her to the hospital, a neighborhood car or something to that?
Actually, police came twice before the ambulance arrived. They talked to her both times, said they could do nothing about it, that she would simply have to wait for the ambulance.
I'll be darned.
A Harlem woman lay dying in her apartment while neighbors tried repeatedly to get an ambulance. One finally came, but it was too late. On the Night Beat, Channel 2's Mary Murphy reports on the Harlem tragedy and charges that delays like that one happen too often.
A city ambulance delivered Carol Lupo to Bellevue Hospital tonight, some 2 hours pains. It was a similar complaint made by 70-year-old Vera Smith on Saturday. Smith also waited 2 hours at her Harlem home, but when paramedics got there, she was dead from internal bleeding.
She was in crack. Oh, God, somebody help me.
So how many calls did you make altogether?
About 4.
EMS acknowledges it did not consider Vera Smith a high-priority case when the call first came in. It put her on the priority 2 list for abdominal pain, saying that most of its 100 ambulances were busy with other, more serious calls. It was not until nearly 2 hours later that Vera Smith made the top priority list, but by then it was too late.
They need to double the size of the fleet.
The city's Health and Hospitals Corporation announced it does have some EMS remedies, including the addition of 47 new ambulances, with 100 more to come in 1988. 24-hour maintenance of the fleet is also on the agenda, along with expanded tour schedules. Emergency medical technicians would welcome the change. When you get to people's homes, do they complain that you're taking too long to get there?
Sometimes.
What do you say to them?
You just got the call.
Union officials complain EMS personnel make only $19,000 a year starting salary. They want equal pay with police officers. EMS, meantime, says the city will add $5 million to its budget for improved services. But City Council President Andrew Stein has called for the director to quit.
An indifferent administration has left EMS in utter disarray, and because of it, people are dying. In another case, a heart attack victim at a senior citizen center in Manhattan waited a half an hour for an ambulance and died before it arrived.
Stein quit the mayor's task force for city ambulances last month to protest the poor response time for EMS, which he claims results in needless deaths. But the city maintains it has cut its response time on high-priority calls in half, from 20 minutes in 1980 to an average of 11 minutes in 1987. Still, that's small comfort to the family of Vera Smith. In Harlem, I'm Mary Murphy, Channel 2 News on the Night Beat.
New York City paramedics have been complaining about a shortage of workers and ambulances. They've said response times were up despite EMS protests to the contrary until recently. Now the proof is coming in the form of lives. The latest, an elderly Harlem woman who died after waiting 2 hours for an ambulance. Mary Savello has the story.
A lot of pain. She suffered a lot of pain.
Ernest McLaurin says a kind woman like Vera Smith should not have died like she did and might not have died at all if paramedics had responded promptly to his repeated calls for help.
I was nervous and very upset. Me and her son.
Because there you were watching her. Did you figure that she was dying?
Yes, I could see because her breath was getting shorter and shorter. And so that's when we really got upset and we was trying to get the EMS here so we could take her to the hospital.
The City Emergency Medical Service today confirmed that McLaurin called 3 times during a 2-hour period Saturday afternoon, but said the 70-year-old woman's reported abdominal pains took a back seat to calls of chest pains or cardiac arrests. So did calls from a young woman who miscarried in this neighborhood less than 2 weeks ago. She hemorrhaged for 3 hours before an ambulance came. And in the meantime, her premature infant died. Some we talked to tonight suggest an unwritten priority for ambulance help may have to do with location.
If you're speaking about a white neighborhood, yes, it wouldn't have been no 2-hour delay, no way.
No, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I know that they are busy. The EMS and the police department and the fire department are very busy.
The Health and Hospitals Corporation, parent agency to the EMS, admits that there are problems with the city's ambulance service. Too few ambulances, too few workers, going after too many calls, especially during these hot summer months. A spokesman, however, says that they are making improvements. Improvements that will come too late for some. Mary Savello, News 4 Harlem.
The paramedics union says EMS measures are not enough. They claim that they are underpaid and that relatively untrained workers are being put on the street.
In the wake of an EMS disclosure that it took 2 hours for an ambulance to reach the home of a dying woman in Harlem. Dr. Alexander Kuehl spoke out for the first time since 70-year-old Vera Smith died last Saturday. Her family claims they desperately dialed 911 for help while the woman slowly died of internal bleeding in her apartment.
There were literally no ambulances in that general area of Manhattan available to go to that lady. When it became a high priority case, the dispatcher appropriately brought an ambulance from very far south in Manhattan up to the area of the job.
Dr. Kuehl tells me there is a serious shortage of ambulances and personnel to handle the load, approximately 3,000 calls a day. Are you saying then that the Harlem woman who died was a victim of all of these problems that you've described?
I think that that's accurate. I make every effort I can to make sure that a case like this never happens.
What is your reaction to City Council President Andrew Stein's suggestion that the agency clean house, that you be removed?
Well, he's wrong in asking for my resignation.
Okay, you defend yourself? You defend your actions?
I do.
Dr. Kuehl told me the City Council...
Because the emergency medical service did not get an ambulance to her in time to save her. And that has laid bare a basic problem at EMS. They don't have enough ambulances and they don't have enough people. Louis Young looks at this story tonight.
EMS Academy at Fort Totten in Queens has been on double shifts since late April. Every 2 weeks, 40 new recruits graduated to the city's EMS system, filling in the service's depleted ranks. It's a 6-week course, but many of the new recruits are already thinking beyond EMS service. In one classroom today, I found numerous students who believe they'll be quitting EMS as soon as positions open in the police or fire departments.
If I was to be called for PD or fire, I would go.
Already applied to police department?
Yes, I have.
It'd be ridiculous for someone to stay here and make $30,000 as a paramedic when they can go into advance in the police department, make $40,000 as a sergeant, $42,000, $43,000.
Top pay for a city paramedic is $26,000, maybe $30,000 with overtime. But it's essentially a dead-end job. In this room, you see experienced EMS paramedics training for recertification, and they are a dwindling breed. People with years of experience on the streets. As EMS salaries fall further behind those of other services, the EMS experience level in the field drops.
There is a burnout factor in this type of work. Some people just can't take it for extended periods of time and have to move on. But when you talk to these people, nobody says they'd rather be a police officer or a firefighter. They say if they leave, it's for the money.
Most of the people who broke me in aren't on the job anymore.
Where did they go?
Police and fire department.
It's really very disheartening because you really think to yourself that the actual value of human life is less than it should be.
So the instructors here continue to work double shifts, fully aware that in New York City there are probably more paramedics in the city police department than there are working for EMS. At Fort Totten, Queens, Louis Young, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Get us there!
The paramedics revive the baby and bring him quickly to the Nassau County Medical Center.
All right, let me have the address.
The call came in first to the Nassau County Police Ambulance Bureau. From the time a call comes in here to when an ambulance arrives at the victim's front door is just 6 minutes on average. In New York City, that figure is closer to 15 minutes. One reason is that in Nassau County, when the regular EMS units are all being used, they use volunteer ambulance services. In New York, there is no such system in place. If EMS is busy, the patient waits, and in some cases, waits too long.
A few minutes. But what a few minutes? Excuse me for cursing, I'm sorry. But that didn't help.
His mother died waiting for an ambulance in New York City. EMS here was busy. In Nassau County, a volunteer crew would have been called.
Approximately half of the ambulance runs in Nassau County are currently being done by volunteers.
Do you find them to be efficient and well-trained?
The volunteers do very well.
By my watch, it took the ambulance 3 minutes and 45 seconds to get to the 9-day-old baby who was not breathing when they arrived. In New York, you could add precious minutes and seconds to that time, and that might well have cost the child his life. In Nassau County, Jim Dolan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
EMS officials in New York tonight say volunteer crews do not meet the educational standards of EMS paramedics, and that's why they can't be used.
A break. And Escalating reports the move is more of a Band-Aid approach than a cure.
The city admits its emergency medical service ambulances do not respond quick enough. They say it takes an average of 15 minutes to get to life and death situations. Dr. Joe Ivy Buford of the city's Health and Hospital Corporation says because of it, they will now be calling on volunteer ambulance services to help.
The issue here is really getting more vehicles available to the public for the purposes of transport to hospitals as quickly as possible.
21 volunteer ambulance corps are already being used by the city. There are another 29 who they hope will now participate. But ironically, even if they do, the head of EMS does not see this as solving their problem.
It won't have a major impact on response time, but it will have a major impact as a safety net to prevent a case that's waited for half an hour for deteriorating.
So while they admit volunteer ambulances won't change this critical response time situation, they still feel that doing something is better than not doing anything at all. From Manhattan, Rosanna Scotto, Fox News, Channel 5.
And still ahead. Some of the pressure plaguing emergency medical service crews lately, the city's Health and Hospitals Corporation announced today it will allow volunteer ambulances to respond to emergency 911 calls. According to city records, between May of last year and this year, response time jumped from under 10 minutes citywide to 13.5 minutes. In June, the average was over 14 minutes and stood at 15 minutes last month. That is much too long as far as City Council President Andrew Stein is concerned, and he wants the EMS to do more.
I think it makes some sense, but I think it obscures the real issue. The real issue is they have to get at least another 100 ambulances out on the street immediately. They need to use the fire department with the 220 fire stations and the 1,500 trained firefighters throughout the city, and they need to improve morale. So this is a small, positive step, but it's nothing really meaningful, and it doesn't, and it obscures, or should not obscure, the real issue.
According to the new plan, a volunteer ambulance corps will be called when EMS ambulances are not available. And this move is not expected to greatly reduce response times, but it should provide a good safety net, according to
the fourth giant player to come down with...
Jim Jensen is off this Monday night. Mike Schneider is here joining us. Our top story, your life may depend on New York's ambulance system, but the question is, can you depend on it? The people in the emergency corps are overworked. Their equipment constantly breaks down. In fact, just last week, we showed you how the 911 phone system is often forced to leave people with emergencies on hold. Tonight, our Vic Miles looks at the ambulance corps in need of emergency care.
It's the fourth call in an hour and a half for Queens EMS Unit 42 Charlie. There's been a shooting in Rockaway. Man down.
But I don't think we're running over 70. It looks like it may have been a graze wound.
I heard 5 shots, and then I looked out the door of my store across the street, and I seen the guy getting up off the ground trying to run.
Then he fell.
And then he fell. They helped him over here.
Regardless of how it looks, this man's lucky on 2 counts. The bullet just grazed his head, and he's getting expert care from some of the city's 1,100 emergency medical service technicians when he needs it most.
You're helping people. You're there during their crisis situation, and you're helping people.
It's a well-oiled professional group of people, but don't be misled. There are critical problems with New York's ambulance corps. Just ask the people who work there.
Literally dying. Literally dying. It's a shame. Waiting for an ambulance an hour, 2 hours. For what? There's something that could be done within 10 minutes.
We're an emergency service, or we're trying to become an emergency service, but we are not staffed, and we do not have enough units to qualify as one. We've pretended to be one for just too many years, and now it's just finally collapsing.
Complaints are not confined to a small group of malcontents. Bitterness over working conditions is so widespread that it daily forces some of the most experienced medical techs to seek work elsewhere.
Fortunately, I was called for New York City Police Department, and they offer much better benefits for me to take, and I can't see no other way to go.
So you're going to leave?
Oh, if I have no choice.
Rookie police make $12,000 more than first-year medical experts, and that's just the beginning. According to the rank and file, several key problems contribute to the breakdown in emergency medical service. Too few and poorly maintained ambulances that commonly break down. The city's call for the right to per diems, part-time help the union claims is not trained and not up to date. A maximum of 12 paid sick days a year for a job that routinely involves handling sick people. It's all led to what the union's calling a devastating attrition and morale problem.
We have a pathetic situation here. It's plain and simple. It's a pathetic situation. Experience is just simply going through the doors here.
EMS needs more equipment, and more people to man it. The people say they want parity with other civil employees. They want pensions and a future. And some of the equipment needs replacing badly.
Well, unfortunately, the vehicle overheated.
Yeah, on the way to the shooting, the city's ambulance broke down. These men call equipment breakdown a common occurrence. And this is what it means to you.
If we were the only vehicle that was available in the area, we wouldn't be able to transport this patient.
An ambulance out of service means more time in agony.
Ready on 3. 1, 2, 3, coming up.
City patients often get hung up in a 70 call per hour backlog. Citywide, there are some 3,000 calls every day for all kinds of medical emergencies.
If you ask me, are people dying? People have died, will continue to die, because the attrition problem here equals death. It's as simple as that.
When I got hit by a car the other day, he cared for me, and he was worried about me. And I just got to say that I hope they take care of him and fix him.
The city has promised EMS 200 more units over the next year. 13 are here now. But the Emergency Corps calls that a Band-Aid on the major hemorrhage of attrition through desertion. Men leaving the service for better money, opportunity, and retirement elsewhere. Another big problem, the workers feel they should have their own commissioner, like the police, fire, and sanitmen, to be able to bargain on their own instead of through other city agencies. They want to become the 4th city uniform service.
So what's the likelihood any of that might happen, Vic? That they have their own representation?
Not good right now. They're still fighting for it. It's not a news story. They've been at it for a couple of years, and they can't get anywhere with it.
Can't get anywhere. Thank you very much.
In New York City, while people are literally dying waiting for an ambulance, the politicians at City Hall who have the ability to bring long-term beneficial change are building political platforms on short-term measures. The solution? Adequate funding for EMS to retain the emergency medical experts currently leaving for other uniformed services. In the streets, EMS attrition equals death. Write your city council representative and let City Hall know that you care whether you live or die.
City Hall tonight as EMS workers held a protest. 700 workers marched to call for higher pay and more benefits in their next contract with the city. The EMS workers want a $10,000 raise to put them on a par with police. The city is offering $300. EMS workers were called to action in Queens tonight. At least 9 people, including 3 children, were overcome when insecticide fumes drifted through their apartment building. Workers had accidentally dropped the insecticides in the basement. The 9 injured were taken to various hospitals.
Well, a former full...
The city says response time is on the mend. Channel 2's Vic Miles has the story.
The daily job frustrations of the city's 2,000 emergency medical service workers is beginning to boil over into the streets. Last night's City Hall demonstration by a force that's been without a contract since last July underscored a wide variety of grievances.
They are hot about the fact that when they're on the scene with a policeman and a fireman, if all 3 of us get hit, the policeman and the fireman have benefits like 3/4 and can go out. We do not have that. We do not have a pension that allows us to retire. They're hot about a number of things.
Last night's demonstration led to an admitted rulebook slowdown by the emergency medical service. And tempers were so high, there could be a strike by the end of the month.
They're forcing it. They're forcing it.
Would you strike?
If we have to, we'll do whatever we have to do.
This mounting worker frustration stems from many areas. Vehicles, they say, are poorly maintained and often break down. No financial parity with other uniformed city services, and too few sick days for a job that puts them under daily physical and high mental stress situations. All this comes against a starkly conflicting picture of new department successes presented late yesterday by city officials. The city says a new 911 dispatching system has significantly reduced the response time of EMS, and city officials in a published report claim that for high-priority heart attack and choking cases, ambulances now respond in under 6 minutes to a third of the cases, while another third was just over 6 minutes, and the last third was still under 10 minutes. But EMS workers today said the city figures cited from the new allegedly improved 9/11 zoning system are inflated and misleading.
This morning's paper said we have a 6-minute response time.
Right.
That is absolute nonsense.
The city has been known for a long time to play with statistics and make them work for their own best interests, and that's what I think has happened.
Meantime, even among the EMS rank and file, signals are mixed, as an apparent rift in top union leadership makes it unclear what the effect of the talk of a worker slowdown will actually be. Earlier this afternoon, EMS officials said there were no traces of any job action. Not yet. Vic Miles, Channel 2 News.
For a bracing, that is, for a strike by emergency medical service people and the people who are used to saving lives, and they may soon be out on the streets. 2,000 emergency workers have been without a contract since July. The issues under dispute: salaries, sick days, pension plans. EMS employees also want parity with firefighters and police officers. The mayor says no.
Mayor Koch was asked by us after he made a speech at the graduation, will we ever get parity with police and fire? And what parity means is pay and benefit equity, okay, and a number of other things. He said, never, okay? We said, well, why not? He said, you're not in a dangerous job.
New York City claims a strike by EMS workers is illegal. Officials are not saying how they are getting ready for a strike. The vote is set for 7:30 this evening.
Okay.
Workers have decided not to strike. They've been without a contract for months, and they want more money, much more than the city's offered them. And although they voted not to walk out, they did agree to take other drastic action. News 4's Carol Jenkins reports.
You say I don't put my job on the line, I put my life on the line. Because if it was my kids and my family, I'd want somebody to help, and I want more money. Because I can't support my family no more, Mayor Koch. Strike! Strike! Strike!
The city has 2,200 EMS workers, and tonight many of them were furious with Mayor Koch.
And when your grandmother's dying and you're waiting for 2 hours for an ambulance, blame the mayor, not the people that have been saving lives.
With a starting salary of $20,500, the city has offered the workers a $600 raise over 3 years. What they want is a $6,000 raise, parity or near parity with police and fire, or at least as much as sanitation.
Apparently what fueled the EMS workers' ire was a statement attributed to Mayor Koch. When talking about parity with police, apparently Mayor Koch informed them that he didn't think the EMS workers' jobs were as dangerous as police officers.
We're in the middle of it with the police. It is a dangerous job, not to mention the fact that we respond to cases that are AIDS-related, meningitis, hepatitis, other infectious diseases. These are life-threatening. They might not be a bullet instantaneously, but they might be a long-lasting bullet, a quiet bullet.
It was enough to send the union membership over the edge, shouting strike. Because they are subject to the Taylor law prohibiting strikes, at one point the executive board was sent out of the fiery meeting so the members could vote freely.
I can tell you that whatever has been discussed is something that I cannot legally sanction, most likely.
We wish to make it clear that the mayor has insulted us. We believe he has insulted us on purpose, but that the officers of Local 2507 do not condone or encourage the members' anger here or what the members may choose to do inside the meeting room.
Is this a union out of control?
I think it's a union that is extremely angry at Mayor Koch.
Are you talking strike? Are you talking...
Whatever it takes, whatever it has to take. He has to see that we know what we're doing, we're worth the money, that we have to get paid.
Well, and that's something, according to union members, is a job action of sorts that begins tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. when the rank and file will show up for work in their street clothes, no uniforms. They'll do this until 6 a.m. Friday, at which point most of the EMS crews are expected to call in sick. And they're also promising a rally at City Hall at noon on Friday, but they're all expected to be back out to work on Saturday morning. But the city has responded, wear your uniform or face disciplinary action. And the city may seek an injunction against the sick-in. Chuck, Sue?
Carol, thank you.
The way the city treats them. Bob Miller reports in an emergency meeting that ended just a few minutes ago, EMS staffers voted on what to do.
So far as the dangers of the job are concerned,
if I go on a job with fire, police, the three of us get hurt. The firemen, the policemen, they're on full pay until they come back to work. I have to go file for workman's comp at 3/4.
Their starting pay is $21,500 a year. Police start at about $26,000. They want $6,000 more over 3 years. The city has offered $600.
I'm a family man. I have 3 kids, and my kids are entitled to free school lunch on what they're paying me.
District 37, the blanket union organization, is their bargaining agent. They say District 37 doesn't understand their needs. Not only that, the Taylor law forbids them to strike. So while their union leadership stood out in the hall, the rank and file took action.
Starting tomorrow, Tour 2, which is 6 o'clock a.m., all right? Our membership will report for work out of uniform until the following day, Tour 2, which is Friday. At that time, Friday, all our people on Tour 2 will call in sick, okay? It's a statement to the city that we're tired of being bullied.
For the next 30 days, EMS people will be handing out these posters to the people they help. And on the back is a postcard, which is to be sent to Mayor Koch, asking for his help for those emergency personnel. In Lower Manhattan, Robert Miller for the news at 10.
A little later in the news,
Promising a sick-out as they continue to argue with the city over a new contract. But just a short time ago, the city got a temporary restraining order to prevent that. Channel 2's Vic Miles reports the signs of discontent were already around today.
Emergency medical services workers are getting unhappier by the day over their wages and benefits, and a recent remark by Mayor Koch that they do less dangerous work than cops and therefore will never get the same wage and benefit considerations.
We walk into crack houses at 2 o'clock in the morning without PD, without firearms, and we have to carry down drug addicts and crack dealers who...
EMS men decided following an angry meeting last night to wear their civvies instead of the regulation uniforms today. And there's a threatened sick-out for tomorrow that may have already begun.
Out of the 25 people that are normally at roll call, there were 3 of us there, and of course they were out of uniform. That's happening citywide.
I'm told there's a lot less activity around here today. That may be because there are so many people out, although I'm also told their jobs are being covered adequately for now. That's for now. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Meantime, the chief city negotiator says the EMS men have a valid contract in force since October, and any wildcat job action is illegal and not going to be tolerated.
The fact is that these workers are supposed to come to work in their uniforms, and we believe that if they're not in their uniforms, they are subject to discipline, and we will have to decide what we do.
As it stands now, after 10 years, police and firemen make $33,000 a year. The EMS technician about $9,500 less, and the paramedic close to $28,000.
We perform a very, very valuable service out here, and without us, it's a lot of problems. And I think it's time that the people of New York raise their voice in our behalf and put the blame where it belongs. And the mayor of New York City...
The EMS Local 2507 is asking for a $6,000 pay increase.
Tomorrow, it might be even harder to get an ambulance in New York. The workers are angry, and News 4's Mary Savillo has more on their gripe and the response by Mayor Koch.
3 at 'em, go ahead, 3 at 'em.
Most city ambulance crews left their uniforms at home today to show Mayor Koch they have one foot out the door.
Strike! Strike! Strike!
700 angry paramedics and emergency medical technicians last night ignored union leaders and voted to take job actions, break the law unless the city pays them on parity with police and firefighters. But Mayor Koch says no way.
But I don't think that our EMS are in the same category as cops who are every day willing to lay down their lives. One cop was just assassinated. I appreciate the work that ambulance drivers do, and it's very important.
Well, they say they're more than ambulance drivers, that they actually administer care.
And they administer care, but they're not cops.
I was in excruciating pain. And to hear somebody, I mean, he can't be that ignorant of the
Donna
fact
Carrillo
that
has just had surgery, a steel plate and pins inserted in her right leg. It was crushed when a wild, emotionally disturbed man pushed her down a flight of stairs Friday. Working beside police, the medic says she had been trying to help the man's parents, who he had just stabbed.
Let him tell my children that it's not a dangerous job. They want to know why I'm not home.
Carrillo says her partner, who loved working as a paramedic, just became a police officer because, like hundreds of others, she got tired of taking the same risks for less pay.
For 7 years of service, I'm making 26, and a cop after 3 years is making 33.
Gutwirth says only 3 of 25 EMS workers showed up for duty at his station today. And tomorrow, they are threatening a system-wide sick-out. But Mayor Koch fired back with a threat of his own.
I'm just telling you now, We will punish you under the law if you violate the law.
I don't think people on this job personally give a damn about what Mayor Koch says anymore.
Even if he's threatening legal action?
I don't think people on this job give a damn about what Mayor Koch says anymore. I reiterate.
Well, late today, the city went a restraining order barring EMS workers from taking any job action. If they do go ahead tomorrow, the Health and Hospitals Corporation says it is prepared.
And now they say their absence may speak louder than words. Tonight, the city got a court restraining order to block the sick out. But as Channel 2's Reggie Harris reports, the paramedics have already begun to show solidarity.
Today, EMS personnel came to work without uniforms. Many of them say tomorrow they won't come at all.
Right now, I'm currently being treated for the flu. I'm on antibiotics, so I'll just call in sick tomorrow.
Call it the green flu. Green, the color uniforms EMS workers usually wear. To deal with the sick out, EMS has ordered tonight's shift to be held over.
We're told we have to stay at the end of our tour indefinitely.
EMTs and paramedics are upset for two reasons. First, they want pay parity with the police and fire departments, and they are fuming about the mayor's comments earlier this week that they don't deserve parity because their jobs are not as dangerous as cops and firefighters. Tonight, a pre-sick out warning from the mayor. They will be docked 2 days' pay for every day of missed work, and...
I'm just telling you, you risk your job.
It's my belief that the membership of this job doesn't give a damn what the mayor of New York City says at this point to them. He has insulted them in the last 2 days.
I've been under railroad trains with the power on to get people out of there. I've been in water tunnels 600 feet underground. I've ridden down in cranes off of 60-story buildings in Manhattan. And it's all documented.
That doesn't mean that EMS personnel aren't doing a very important job. They are. But they are not cops and they're not firefighters, and everybody knows that.
To come in here, to this neck of the woods, and tell my people on this job that they're not in a dangerous job. When that Philistine at City Hall, who purports to be the mayor of New York City, comes here and tells me that, he has just put his ignorant foot into his arrogant mouth. And I think that Goliath has just met his David.
The mayor says there are other sanctions besides losing a day's pay that can be brought against an EMS job action, but tonight Koch wouldn't say what he has in mind. In Queens, Reggie Harris, Channel 2 News.
And still ahead tonight, some relief with that traffic hit.
Emergency medical service workers were calling in sick. They went ahead with a threatened job action, forcing EMS to scramble for crews to keep the system running. Channel 2 News correspondent Dick Oliver has the story.
While their ambulances lay idle, parked where they left them last night, nearly half of the city's emergency service workers pulled a sick out today in defiance of a court order. They marched on City Hall and gathered outside the court, protesting their treatment by the city and something Mayor Koch had said about their demands for pay parity with cops and firefighters.
I said, the job, you're not a cop, you're not a firefighter, and cops and firefighters put their lives on the line every single day. I do not believe that you can compare, as important as an EMS worker is, I wouldn't take away the respect that you should accord them for what they do.
Top pay for this job is about $24,000, nearly $10,000 less than a cop's salary, but these workers say they face the same dangers as police.
I was assaulted myself last summer.
How? How's it dangerous?
How is it dangerous? We have AIDS patients, we have people that pull knives and guns. We walk into situations where a dispatcher will give us a call, and you don't know what it is until you get there.
The city reported that 176 out of 347 failed to show up for the day shift. At the city's biggest hospital, Bellevue, only 2 out of the normal 16 ambulances were operating. For one young man, his first day on the job.
Unions decided to express a point to the mayor. I'm glad they're doing it. I wish I could really be with them, but I don't feel I could jeopardize my job if I did.
At the height of the sick-out, an angry Mayor Koch warned the technicians their jobs were on the line.
Go back to work, or you're going to suffer in an economic way, in a way you never contemplated. Some of you are going to be fired, because the law allows us to fire under certain circumstances, and believe me, we'll do it.
Both Mayor Koch and these workers have flexed their muscles in this one-day demonstration. The sick-out is expected to end tomorrow.
And it's very important.
Well, they say they're more than ambulance drivers, that they actually administer care.
And they administer care, but they're not cops.
They say they work side by side with police, but they start at $21,500 a year, while a rookie cop starts just under $26,000. And after 3 years, there is a $9,000 difference.
Mechanics who repair city vehicles in New York City start out at $30,000 a year. We start out at $20,000. If the Mayor Koch wants to tell the city of New York that saving lives isn't up there with fixing cars and hauling garbage, let him tell the public that.
Some of you are going to be fired because the law allows us to fire under certain circumstances, and believe me, we'll do it.
The mayor warned that once the workers are fired, they will not be rehired. But the threat rolled off their backs.
Well, he could fire me because I'm not going back on the job.
I have 16 years on this job. He doesn't scare me in the least.
I'm an academy instructor for New York City EMS. We can't train the people. There are no EMTs out there to be hired.
I don't think we have a problem at this particular point. We just, I just was out there to a graduating class.
Well, it appears that so far they are getting by with the police officers helping out and management personnel driving the ambulances. The Health and Hospitals Corporation said that they have been lucky, that the number of calls that they've received for help have been
called in sick. Now, inside, city lawyers were filing suit to end the EMS sick-out. EMS workers want to be paid the same as policemen, but Mayor Koch says EMS work is not as dangerous as police work. Starting tomorrow, the EMS workers will
Will fire a number of emergency medical service workers tonight after a labor problem turned into a medical crisis. More than 100 emergency medical workers demonstrated at City Hall, demanding salary parity with cops and firefighters. At the same time, dozens of EMS ambulances stood idle at hospitals around the city as paramedics staged a sick-out. Mayor Koch charged that the EMS union was out of control and went to court this afternoon threatening to fire the workers. He said he'd asked the court to invoke the Taylor Law, which imposes stiff fines on striking municipal employees.
Any sanction that is imposed, that's within my power to impose, I will do it. Secondly, that no sanction that I impose will be lifted once imposed.
If he fires us, he fires us. It isn't going to matter because if we don't make enough to feed our families, we don't make enough.
Many of the medical workers are blaming Koch for the problem. They resent his claim that their work is less dangerous than the work of police and firefighters, charging Koch doesn't understand what they do.
We have rats in buildings and, you know, people that smell and stuff like that.
Each of the uniformed services has their own peculiar dangers. Fire has their own peculiar dangers, PD has their own peculiar dangers, and we have ours.
The workers Koch has threatened to let go are reportedly new workers on probation who participated in the sick-out. The other workers say they plan to return to their jobs tomorrow.
Fire EMS workers who did not show up for work today, as many of them as he can. They are sick of not getting paid as police and firefighters are paid. The mayor's tired of job actions by city employees. Lynn White reports.
No work! No money! No work! No money! No work!
Defying a court order, hundreds of emergency medical services personnel took to the picket lines today, while their ambulances sat idle. Half of the city's EMS workers, in fact, called in sick this morning, while supervisory personnel and private ambulance services picked up the slack.
We can survive it.
Emergency medical services did survive today, but these picketers were angry.
We want parity, and we also want line-of-duty injury.
Parity, after all, is what this demonstration is all about. The EMS workers want a $6,000 raise to bring them in line with the salaries of firefighters and police officers. To that, the mayor says,
You're not a cop, you're not a fireman. Cops and firemen put their lives on the line every single day.
But these EMS workers say so do they.
I've caught hepatitis, tuberculosis, I've been in building collapses, I've been in auto accidents, I get cut, I get hurt like other people out here, and we don't get paid very much for it.
These EMS workers say they'll be back on the job tomorrow, but Mayor Koch says some of them won't have jobs to go back to.
Some of you are going to be fired because the law allows us to fire under certain circumstances, and believe me, we'll do it.
In fact, the mayor has already compiled a hit list of EMS workers who will lose their jobs because of this illegal walkout. To that, the union has asked the mayor to reconsider, while it ordered its striking workers back to work for the night shift. Lynn White, Fox News, Channel 5.
The deal.
Sick today. EMTs and paramedics who are staging a 24-hour sick-out in response to the mayor's position that EMS workers do not deserve as much money as police and firefighters because their job is not as dangerous. The starting salary for police and firefighters is $26,000. Starting pay for EMS is $21,500.
I personally do not believe that as important as EMS is, that you can equate them with the danger that's involved in being a cop and a firefighter.
I'd like to invite the Mayor Koch to come with me and ride when I'm assigned to Harlem one day, and we go through some crack houses in Harlem.
There's a lot of danger. There's danger from all areas. I don't think that the mayor's researched any of this at all.
I go into crack buildings, okay? These people don't care. They want money. They don't know differentiate between myself as an EMT who doesn't carry drugs and a medic who does carry drugs.
The big question tonight, is the sick-out endangering the public? Hospital officials say no. They have supervisors working extra shifts, and they are very carefully screening all 911 calls to make sure the caller really does need help. And the police are picking up the slack. They, too, are responding to calls. EMT workers are not allowed to strike because of the Taylor Law, which forbids government workers from striking.
Contemplated.
Important as it is, and we respect what they do, that their job is comparable to being a cop who's or a firefighter whose life can be in danger every single day.
Nevertheless,
I simply said they're not entitled to parity. There are lots of people in this government who don't have parity with police officers, and I don't believe these people should. That doesn't mean I don't respect their job, and if they violate the Taylor Law, some of them are going to lose their jobs. If you violate the Taylor Law, and we tell you in advance, as we did here, that you will suffer all of the consequences, that not to impose the consequences means that you're a wimp, and that people in the future will say you can violate the Taylor Law with impunity. We're not going to allow that. There will be some EMS personnel fired, and others who will lose 2 days' pay for each day they were on strike.
in another
Sick out today, leaving many ambulances parked instead of rolling. It's a one-day protest that's already cost workers 2 days' pay, and for some, their jobs. But as Channel 2's Reggie Harris reports, some workers believe it was worth the risk.
I'm homesick because I'm sick.
That was the party line tonight for EMS personnel being checked by doctors at Goldwater Hospital on Roosevelt Island. The checkups were part of the city's response to a sick-out by EMS workers who want to be paid the same as firefighters and police officers. Half of the EMS day shift and 40% of the night shift called in sick today. Before getting to the hospital, this man got the call saying he had already been fired by the mayor.
They told me to report to duty or I would be terminated. And then when I spoke to my lieutenant, he says it was too late, and that as for Mayor Koch, we've already been terminated, all provisional employees.
The decision to fire at least 45 provisional EMS workers, people who have been hired but are not yet certified civil servants, was made tonight at a City Hall meeting. The mayor made the decision. His deputy announced it.
Those who engaged in the job action who are provisionals, they will be terminated with the right to reapply in 60 days.
There is nothing the union can do legally to help those who've been fired because provisional employees can be dismissed without cause. Bresnoff also said that 58 probationary EMS workers who called in sick will have their probations extended for 60 days.
I think the real tragedy here is that the mayor of the city of New York has sent a signal to everyone here in this city that the emergency medical service is not a career opportunity.
Even before the workers knew officially that some of them would be fired, they were worried about it.
You have your car, you have your apartment, you have your bills, you have your whole life. If you lose your job, what are you? You'll be homeless.
I think it's worth my job. Getting paid $20,000 a year to risk my life and my health at times, I think it's worth staying out to prove the point.
Union leaders say their only option now is to rally political support against the mayor. Borough presidents, council members, and anyone else with political clout will be asked to lean on.
Because their jobs are not as dangerous. One of the fired EMS workers is Donna Carrillo. She was pushed down a flight of stairs on February 26th while on duty. She was helping an emotionally disturbed person when she was injured. She's had surgery this week and called in sick from the hospital on Friday. Then she got a call in her hospital room telling her she was fired. Here's her version of this latest bureaucratic mix-up.
List of the provisionals, a list of the people who called in sick, cross-referenced it, and I just happened to be one of the lucky winners on that list. Unfortunately, nobody checked into the fact that I was on workman's compensation for an injury after being assaulted in the line of duty.
Fired after taking part in a one-day sick-out want those jobs back. As Channel 2's Jane Tillman Irving reports, some of the workers who lost their jobs had nothing at all to do with the sick-out.
City emergency medical technician Donna Carrillo may consider herself a double casualty of her job. First, she was injured in the line of duty 8 days ago and is confined to Downstate Medical Center.
Then to make matters worse, today I was terminated.
That's right, fired, even though she was in a hospital bed. Donna was among the 45 provisional EMS employees fired by the city for participating in yesterday's sick-out job action, even though she obviously wasn't among them. They demonstrated at City Hall for parity with police and firefighters. The state's Taylor law prohibits strikes by public employees, and the EMS technicians return to work under a judge's orders. In addition to those fired, probationary employees had their trial periods extended. Today, the EMS vans are rolling, but ill feeling remains.
The firing has had tremendous demoralizing effect on our members. The message from the City of New York is that they do not intend to make this into a professional emergency service. They intend this to be a stopover job.
Throughout this dispute, the EMS technicians have been insisting that their duties are just as hazardous as those performed by police and firefighters.
Have you found anybody in this city who believes that an EMS worker who does a very responsible job is comparable to a cop or a firefighter? I've never found such a person.
I looked at my ankle and I was like, I can't believe he said that.
The EMS union calls the city vindictive.
What has been offered to us is totally inadequate to stabilize this workforce.
How many people do you lose a year? What percentage?
Attrition figures in this agency run anywhere between 15 and 20% a year, and you just simply cannot have professional emergency service workers, people with experience on the job, when you're losing at that rate.
The union says that it received a list of the provisional employees who were to be fired, and Donna Carrillo's name wasn't on that list. They say that there's no telling how many other people who were legitimately away from work yesterday also got those termination notices. And if they're all not reinstated, it'll mean longer response time and less efficient emergency care for people who really need it. In Brooklyn, Jane Tillman Irving, Channel 2 News.
The mayor said there's been a change of mind. Donna Carrillo's termination order has been rescinded, and she'll soon be told she still has her job.
Now, Reggie, despite the struggle with the mayor, EMS personnel...
First, the mayor says they shouldn't get paid as much as police officers or firefighters. Then the EMS retaliates by staging a sick-out yesterday. And today, the confrontation takes a new twist. It turns out one of the 45 workers fired by the mayor for joining in the sick-out wasn't faking. She really was ill, as Steve Dunlop reports.
No money, no work, no money, no.
Mayor Koch was justified, perhaps, in thinking that not many of these EMS workers look very sick. In response to a sick-out yesterday, the mayor dismissed 45 provisional technicians and paramedics. One of them got her notice in a place the city assumed she wasn't, in a sickbed.
Probably what happened is they took a list of provisional people here and a list here of the people who had called in sick that day, cross-referenced it, and I just happened to be one of the people that were on both lists, and without checking it, sent me a notice that I was terminated.
Donna Carrillo was injured a week ago while responding to a call that a man with a knife was beating up a relative.
And he threw a body block at me, and I was, at least halfway up the stairs and came tumbling down them.
Donna's right leg bone snapped completely in two. She underwent surgery to repair it, and she'll have a metal splint inside the limb for a year and a half.
What's happened to Donna is simply unbelievable. It shows that the City of New York and the mayor of the City of New York has reacted in a vindictive fashion to my emergency medical professionals, bringing their needs and their problems to the public eye.
But to all of this, there is a partially happy ending. EMS admits the firing of Donna Carrillo was unintentional, that a lot of letters had to go out in a very short period of time, and that somebody goofed. Donna finds that small consolation for her colleagues who were really fired.
We want to get paid more than sanitation workers. We feel we deserve better than what we're getting.
Besides her firing and rehiring, there's one other thing Donna Carrillo says she'll remember about her hospital stay.
She says it'll be the very first words she heard after she came out of anesthesia. It was the television, Mayor Koch saying that EMS workers don't have a dangerous job. From the Health Sciences Center in Brooklyn, Steve Dunlop, Fox News.
Sick yesterday. Truth was that Carrillo was in a hospital bed recovering from surgery. Well, tonight, the mayor's office phoned our newsroom to explain that it was all a mistake and that Miss Carrillo should never have been fired in the first place. Not good enough, says the EMS Workers Union chief. Richard McAllan says he wants Mayor Koch to rehire Carrillo personally and then apologize to her. Last night, the mayor fired nearly half the city's ambulance workers after they all called in sick.
Gave up.
New York City's EMS workers were in court today. They're trying to get their jobs back after 45 of them were fired after last week's sick out. It is the first round now in a legal battle over whether those technicians and paramedics deserve to be fired for the job action. About half the day shift called in sick on Friday, demanding to be paid the same as police and firefighters. And some of those fired say they really were sick.
I went out sick after working 4 hours overtime on Thursday night. I went out sick because I was overcome with fumes. My vehicle filled up with carbon monoxide fumes. I have a note from a doctor from Booth Memorial that says 24 hours bed rest. They're not honoring that. He wrote fired before he even looked at the note.
Now, so far, at least 2 workers who were fired have gotten...
Reports now on the continuing dispute between those workers and New York City.
The emergency medical service battle with the city went into the courts today against a background of scores of firings.
I can't give any comment. It's in litigation on advice of our attorneys.
You know, I got bills to pay. I got people to feed. I'm out in the cold. I don't know what to do.
The city wants contempt charges brought against EMS people who allegedly participated in a sick-out last Friday. About half the corps didn't show up. The union is crying foul and wants those fired to get their jobs back.
I asked for a meeting with Mayor Koch, and I asked him to publicly bury the hatchet with EMS Local 2507, and of course to immediately reinstate the fired workers.
The tedious court proceedings here were in stark contrast to the scene at EMS headquarters in Maspeth. That's where there were many horror stories of life as an EMS worker. They say it's very dangerous. Then there was the frustration and the anger of those recently fired.
The unemployed. Mayor Koch doesn't care. The same attitude the EMS does. They never cared, they never will, and they never have.
Local 2507 has been asking for wage parity with police for some time. Recently, Mayor Koch said they didn't deserve the same pay as cops because their jobs are not as dangerous.
I've been in 2 major accidents. I almost got stabbed. I almost got shot. I got a bullet in the ambulance to prove that this job is not dangerous. You know, working 8 years in Bedford-Stuyvesant, I mean, this job is an easy job according to Mayor Koch.
Some workers claim they had legitimate excuses for not being on the job during the sick-out, but they got pink slips today anyhow.
I have a note from a doctor from Booth Memorial that says 24 hours bed rest. They're not honoring that. He wrote fired before he even looked at the note.
The city claims any mistakes in the firings will be ironed out. At least 2 workers have been reinstated.
Union held in contempt for violating a restraining order against the job action. It's a bitter pill for fired EMS workers.
I have a note from a doctor from Booth Memorial that says 24 hours bed rest. They're not honoring that. He wrote fired before he even looked at the note.
The unemployed. Mayor Koch doesn't care.
Ambulance workers and the city are at loggerheads over money. Mayor Koch says they should make less than cops and firemen because their jobs are less.
Officials said today 20 fired EMS workers got their jobs back after having their cases reviewed. 34 of the technicians are still out. EMS workers stayed off their jobs last week to demand they be paid as much as police and firefighters. EMS has canceled days off and imposed mandatory overtime until the force is at 100%.
We have stress in there, we have anxiety, we have anger. You know, people come into work after tour duty to get fired, no known reason why they get fired. They come in here and they argue and they get reinstated, and it was unnecessary.
It's rough. There's a lot of stress. It's rough when you got to do 16 hours, sometimes 12 hours.
It was another of a growing list of stressful days at emergency medical service. Many of their number fired, the city response to an alleged sick-out last Friday.
We have stress in there, we have anxiety, we have anger. You know,
it's rough. There's a lot of stress.
And compounding the already bad situation, there have been several snafus in the city's handling of the pink slips.
Yesterday morning, I had a job for about 15 minutes again. Then, like I said, one of the associates of Mr. Lease came out, and then he called me back in. and told me that I was terminated again because of HHE policy.
Where do you stand right now?
I am unemployed right now.
Again?
Again. Second time around.
The mishandling of dismissals reached embarrassing proportions in the case of the only paramedic to die on duty last year. One of his best friends when he was alive says the dead man got a report for duty or else telegram yesterday.
Well, I was shocked when I opened it. I get very upset. I thought it was a mistake. I don't understand how EMS could do this.
Kirby McAllan died almost a year ago. He got a hero's farewell. There was a mobile unit named after him. Yet somehow, his name is still listed as active in the EMS personnel files.
Well, I'm glad I received it rather than his parents. His parents are elderly. They live out of town. And while it brought back a lot of bad memories for me, emotions I've been trying to repress for a year, I'm just glad it was me, not his parents. It would have been very bad.
As of now, 34 EMS men are still on the fired list. The men thrown off the job have created a lot of overtime for those remaining.
All EMS uniform employees have to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, up to 16 hours a day, until further notice.
Sometimes I think it's not worth it for all that I go through, and what I get back, it's just not worth it sometimes.
Behind all of the EMS troubles are their demands for parity in pay and benefits with police and firemen. EMS officials, meantime, say they're reviewing the workers still on the fired list on a case-by-case basis. Vic Miles, Channel 2 News.
Judge in White Plains today snuffed out the hopes of commuters who wanted, and because they were eating. The two EMS technicians were at a deli last month. They were told that a man had collapsed in a nearby church. At first, they said they were off duty. They continued to eat. Later, they did respond. But at that point, it was too late for 60-year-old Anthony Sola. He died of a heart attack. One investigator called for 2-month suspensions, but because both men had been decorated in the past, no suspensions. They were fined $2,000. Sola's son calls the penalty meaningless, and a friend says it is unbelievable.
They were attacked. Beryl Hoover and Octavio Oliveri got to 72nd Street and Broadway earlier this morning, where a man had slashed his wrists. Several men, though, started insulting the EMS help, and then the insults turned into violence.
We were treating the patient, but they did not feel that we were doing it fast enough for their liking.
One of them approached me in a hostile manner, and I pushed him away and told him that he was interfering with patient care. At that time, I was struck. I didn't expect it, but I was.
3 men, the alleged attackers, were later arrested by police. The beatings renewed a debate over whether EMS workers should be paid as much as police and firefighters. They staged a sick-out recently after Mayor Koch said they should not, and today the mayor didn't change his mind.
And it's dangerous, and it's in bad parts of town in terms of a possible assault. We don't give them battle pay.
The EMS union is disagreeing. It insists that paramedics risk their lives.
24 hours a day.
You know, there are a lot of reasons why your car might leak. Is your transmission shot? Maybe, maybe not. Now's the time to take your car to AMCO. They'll give your transmission the most complete diagnostic checkup in the industry. So if it's just a small problem, they'll spot it. Fact is, half the cars serviced by AMCO dealers don't need a new transmission. So chances are that little leak won't end up draining your wallet.
AMCO, AA, MCO.
All right. Name the fast food restaurant that serves burgers and fried chicken.
Roy's. It's Roy's. Where do they get these people?
Now at Roy's, get a 2-piece chicken dinner medium fries or a bacon cheeseburger medium fries. Your choice, just $1.99.
I'll take underwater farming for $50. I'll take Roy's for $1.99.
With Eureka, it's a win-win proposition. Get our great new house cleaning book at no additional charge when you buy a Eureka vacuum cleaner for $80 or more. Or take home special savings on vacs priced under $80. You win either way. Eureka will sweep you off your feet. Make your choice today at Stearns, all stores.
What's hot in the ad world? And the writer's walkout takes its toll. These stories center stage tonight with Joe Rappaport. Joe.
Michelle, it is only day 12, but the scriptwriters' strike is already taking a toll on TV and movie production. Here are some of the shows that are beginning to feel the heat now.
Gibson will play my life.
The producers of Moonlighting had planned to end the season with a special 3D episode, but the script isn't written yet, and as long as the Writers Guild is on strike, chances are you won't see these stars in any more than 2 dimensions. LA Law plans to wrap production on Monday and will have to drop its last 2 shows unless the strike is settled in the next few weeks.
That's the American dream, all right.
Now, the cast and crew of Cheers have already gone on hiatus without taping a final episode.
Because I'm too fat. No, you're not fat.
30-something is now shooting episodes out of sequence and may still have to do without a final show if the writers do not come back to work soon.
I don't know all the time to check. See, a lot of people...
The Cosby Show has 2 more episodes to go. The cast and crew will come back to work if the strike is settled in the next few weeks. Otherwise, those 2 shows will be shot next season. Late Night with David Letterman and The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson are stuck in reruns for the time being. Now, despite the strike, producers of the new The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour have decided to make 6 of the TV shows, even though they have only 3 union-written scripts.
Great! Ciao! Adios! Love ya!
Now, while some shows may have trouble getting on the air, you can always count on the commercials to show up. Many TV ads fade fast, but there are those spots that put the U in unique, which is what the advertisers aim for.
There's no place like home. Giorgio.
That it's not just the package. It's your business.
Every day we're subjected to advertisements asking us to buy, but with thousands of commercials out there, which ads do we really pay attention to?
You'll see more entertainment value in advertising. You'll see spots that are as entertaining as they are informative, because they have to do that, or you just won't remember what you've seen.
If you think this commercial looks familiar, it may be because it's a shot-for-shot recreation of the famous scene from James Dean's movie Rebel Without a Cause. There's no dialogue, no pitch, but the message is clear.
Television commercials have tended to be more executionally oriented, more driven by visuals than they have conceptually and copy-oriented. So if you watch lately, you'll see commercials where they're cutting away to hands and not showing all of people's faces and things like that.
But trends can be a little annoying.
I think the Eye Doctors of America owe a great debt of gratitude to the people who put out those commercials. It's a good example of what happens when a technique becomes hot. It very quickly becomes imitated, and we, the consumer, see so much of it, we're sick of it in a week or 2.
No one knows what the new trend will be, but experts agree. It just takes one hot commercial to get the entire industry on the bandwagon. On Monday, we'll take a look at how celebrities have helped and sometimes hurt ad campaigns. Michelle?
Thanks, Joe. Well, that's Channel 2 News at 5:30. I'm Jane Velez-Mitchell.
I'm Michelle Marsh. Up next, Channel 2 News at 6 with Carol Martin and Mike Schneider. Here's what's ahead.
I'm Chris Morgan. 2 EMS paramedics trying to help a man on the street wound up in the hospital themselves, victims of an assault.
American military forces parachute into Honduras. More symbols of strength in that country's fight for peace. I'm Carol Martin. I'll have the latest on the Honduras-Nicaraguan border fighting.
I'm Brian Williams at the UN, where the rhetoric heats up before the Security Council over U.S. troops in Honduras.
I'm John Slattery at the Robert Chambers trial, where the jury is well into day 2 of deliberations.
Tony, congratulations. Kid, I thought you looked real relaxed. You'll see how he looks a little later tonight. It's coming up, the story of the wedding of Tony and Tina. That's cool. That's cool.
Now, Jim Jensen, Carol Martin, Warner Wolf, Dr. Frank Field, and the Channel 2 News team. This is Channel 2 News at 6. Everything you need to know, because anything can happen in New York.
Good evening, everyone. Jim Jensen has this Friday night off. Mike Schneider is here again joining us. To our top story, if you ask Mayor Koch, it's not such a dangerous job, but if you talk to the EMS technicians who were brutally beaten in Manhattan overnight, Life on the streets can be very dangerous indeed. A vicious attack on the 2 ambulance workers has now added fire to the feud between Mayor Koch and city workers. Channel 2's Chris Borgen reports.
EMS technician Darrell Hoover, with his arm in a sling, and his partner Octavio Olivieri, cuts and scratches on his face, eyes swollen and bloodshot, see themselves as black and blue proof that the job of an emergency service medical technician is dangerous. It happened like this. It was an early morning call, 72nd Street, Broadway. A man down, possible suicide, both wrists slashed, bleeding to death. When the emergency service team arrived on the scene, they found that the situation was not quite as critical as first reported. Yes, there was a man down, and yes, he was bleeding from a cut on a wrist, but his vein had not been severed. They felt that they could give him first aid right on the curbside. They began to do just that, but there were those in the crowd who had a different medical opinion.
There was 3 individuals in the crowd who started to advise us how we should do our work. One of them approached me in a hostile manner, and I pushed him away and told him that he was interfering with patient care.
The man responded with a punch. 2 others in the crowd joined in, and suddenly, an all-out rumble. Police arrived on the scene, but not before the 2 EMS men had sustained a number of injuries. Mayor Koch rushed to the hospital and called the technicians heroes of the day.
So far as I'm concerned, I want them to know how much I appreciate what they're doing.
Olivieri, reminding the mayor that he was the technician who treated the mayor when his honor collapsed last year, seized the moment to strike a blow on the continuous EMS fight for more pay. The mayor listened, but wasn't by.
Very reasonable that they should say, well, we want to be treated like cops. I said, you're not cops. Well, our work is dangerous. Occasionally it will be.
But the EMS had cited what it saw as the dangers of the job when it demanded a $6,000 pay hike to bring salaries on par with those of fire, police, and sanitation. The mayor's emphatic no led to a 24-hour sick-out by EMS technicians and resulted in 45 of them being fired.
We deal with many different dangers. I'm in the middle of crossfire sometimes.
When they talk about more money, I said, we're not hiring 2,000 cops this year because we don't have the money to do it. What do you think I should do? Do you think I should hire 2,000 more cops or give you increases if we had money to do it? I think they thought increases. I think cops.
Olivieri and Hoover were treated and released from the hospital. Their assailants were arrested, booked on assault charges at Manhattan's 20th precinct. I'm Chris Borgen, Channel 2 News.
Officers were attacked by a crowd of angry bystanders as they were giving emergency care. As Ed Miller reports, the EMS workers then needed emergency care themselves.
God forbid if they had a weapon. We are unarmed.
That's paramedic Darrell Hoover reliving his routine rescue run early this morning that ended with him having to be rescued after being surrounded by a mob and attacked.
We're not trained to fight, to protect ourselves from that. We're trained to help.
Paramedic Octavio Olivieri was beaten in the face. Hoover's wrist was twisted and he may have nerve damage. All because the crowd at 72nd and Broadway did not think the paramedics were giving proper treatment to a man who cut his own wrist in a suicide attempt.
One of them approached me in a hostile manner, and I pushed him away and told him that he was interfering with patient care. At that time, I was struck. I didn't expect it, but I was struck.
One policeman was also shaken up in the melee. Police arrested Carlos Rivera, George Washington, and Choi Diaz, charging them with assault. The incident comes 2 weeks after emergency medical service workers staged a work slowdown in support of their demands for higher wages, equal to cops and firemen. They say their job is just as dangerous. But despite this latest incident, Mayor Koch continues to disagree.
So it is not to be compared with cops who every day are prepared to give up their lives, as occasionally, regrettably, they have.
Mayor Koch compared the danger of the EMS job to traffic agents who also sometimes get assaulted. In Midtown Manhattan, I'm Ed Miller.
While trying to help a man.
It's like any emergency service job. It's not easy, and it can be dangerous. EMS paramedics Darrell Hoover and Octavio Olivieri were helping a man who tried to slash his wrist on the Upper West Side when 3 men jumped them, apparently because they were upset with the medical treatment.
The individual approached me in that state, in a state of preparedness to assault me. And I just pushed him off and told him to back off because he was interfering with patient care.
Darrell Hoover suffered a sprained wrist. His partner had cuts and bruises on his face. One of the 3 men arrested crashed through a restaurant window with a policeman who tried to restrain him. One claimed he was only trying to help a man being assaulted by the EMS crew.
She took in there where the ambulance crew beat them up. I'm a helper.
EMS workers say incidents like this morning happen almost every day, and it's one of the reasons they're fighting City Hall, to get more protection from the daily hazards of the job. Protection other emergency services like police and fire already have.
We get assaulted or injured, we don't get a disability. If I can't come back to work in 3 months because I have a fractured nose or broken arm, I can essentially get welfare and some food stamps. Police and fire don't have to do that.
Gutwirth says that forces many injured EMS workers to go back to work before their injuries are healed. He also says their pay scales should be brought in line with other emergency services.
Granted, we might not be involved in shootouts per se, but we have been shot at, we have been abused, and we have been assaulted. And we feel that we should be paid the same.
Mayor Koch says he still believes EMS doesn't deserve pay parity with the city's police and fire departments because their job is not as dangerous. In Manhattan, Kevin Rosen for the news.
I think they understood it. That issue is over. But I still appreciate and respect what the EMS does and what those 2 heroes did.
Now, on the subject of the firemen and the problems that they're having.
Endangering the lives of people who need help. Union officials say 35 more employees have been fired, bringing to 70 the number laid off this year following a work slowdown. The Health and Hospitals Corporation claims only 50 have been let go so far and insists that EMS service has not been effective. Emergency workers stage a job action to demand they be paid the same amount as the police and firefighters are paid. The EMS workers are in contract negotiations with the city right now, demanding pay parity with the police